fascinating. Also, this is a Stand with Ukraine protest happening in Washington, D.C. It has gained more followers throughout the morning. It's kind of ebbed and flowed as we've gone throughout the day, so we're going to keep our eye on that. But back here locally, if you weren't woken up over the weekend by it, I know I was, we had some pretty severe weather move through, some pretty crazy thunderstorms. And Mount Prospect was one area that really got hit hard. On the line with us right now, we have Deputy Fire Chief Tom Wang with the Mount Prospect Fire Department. Deputy Chief, can you hear me okay?
I sure can. Can you hear me?
Yes, you sound great. Thanks so much for taking your time for Chicago Live. We appreciate that today. Just tell us, we had some amazing, incredible pictures coming out of your area over the weekend. Tell us what all the damage, and was it kind of centrally located, or was it throughout your community?
It was mostly on the south side of Mount Prospect. What I would guess would be a microburst came through. One of our biggest damage was the building to 701 Huntington Commons. I'm sure you saw some footage over it, but our firefighters arrived there on Saturday just after 4:45 for a fire alarm. And when they got to the fourth floor, they saw that there was a partial tear off of the building. So the roof had torn off and kind of folded up on itself, and then also got into the parking lot behind it as well. Luckily, they immediately looked to see if there was any fire in the building, and when there wasn't any, they started evacuating the entire building. We were extremely fortunate there were no injuries reported during the whole event, which is, when you see some of the photos from it, it is just quite remarkable that there were no injuries.
Because we're talking, what, 60 units, right?
Yeah, I think it's been up to, I think it might be 70 to 75 units. Yeah, it is unbelievable.
So you think possibly a microburst, which when we talk about microburst, we think it's more kind of a general, kind of more of a location not so widespread, right? Because most of your damage from that storm was kind of just in that particular area.
Yeah, it was in that area, and there are other 4 or 5 story buildings nearby as well that didn't have as extensive damage like that to those buildings. So it kind of was just in that one path, but we did also have a lot of trees down and power lines down in the area close by as well.
And what time did this happen for you guys?
This was around 4:45 p.m. that we were called out for that specific location, but the storm started a few minutes before.
A few minutes before, and then how fast were you guys out there helping out?
Oh my! And we had so many help from other towns as well, because we had so many calls going on at once. But yeah, we were out there right away. We had all of our fire department personnel responding to all the calls in the area.
And I would assume that you're hanging out at the fire department and you're watching that forecast just as close as the rest of us, right? So you saw this line coming, you knew that it could be bad.
Yeah, we did, and then unfortunately, luckily we were able to evacuate everyone, make sure there were no injuries, and then there was those follow-up storms afterward that were also something we were making sure we had a location to send all the residents that were displaced. So that was definitely something we were quick to jump on and find a place for them to at least just hang out until the next round of storms had passed.
And so what's going on right now out there? If we had a picture out there right now, what would it look like?
Sure. Today, the building has been turned over to the property manager. They had a restoration company with many people clearing out the parking lot, and they had a structural engineer as well to just make sure that how the building, what can be salvaged and what needs to be done. I don't have the details of that, but that's kind of what you see. There's a lot of cleanup effort going on right now. And then behind the scenes, the American Red Cross and our Mount Prospect Human Services are still working with the displaced residents just to make sure that they have food and a place to stay.
Yeah, because that's no easy task, right? 60, 70 units. We're talking about potentially hundreds of people still
Correct.
not being able to go back inside their homes today, correct?
Well, I don't know if they'll be able to go back into their homes. They're going to be working with the property management company to at least be able to go back and get some of their personal belongings that are very important to them. As far as when they may be able to go back into the building on a more permanent basis, I wouldn't be able to give you the answer to
Yeah,
that.
it's going to be a while. Does it just seem like the strong winds just kind of ripped that roof off of that? Is that just a big gust of wind and that's all it takes, right?
Yeah, that would be my best guess, and yeah, and more evidence would be the area kind of right around it with all the trees down and the power lines as well.
Yeah, well, we appreciate what you do and that quick response that you had, and obviously all those neighboring communities too. A shout out to them, because when something like this happens, it's really an all hands on deck. Are you guys? Do you have your eye on the radar today? Because I think there might be more storms out there today.
Yeah, we just saw it, and yeah, we'll keep an eye. Hopefully, they're not even as close as bad as they were on Saturday.
Right, for you or for anyone else around, right? Deputy Chief Tom Wang with Mount Prospect Fire. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, it is 1:06. Back to some more national news. Of course, President Trump meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy today, welcoming him into the White House. There's a live look again at that Stand with Ukraine protest in Washington, D.C. So that's going on currently. We've got possibly a 1:30 event with President Trump and with Mr. Zelenskyy coming up. We'll bring that to you live. But first, let's send it over to Paris Schutz. Paris, I assume you listened to some of this. It was what, 20, 30 minutes long? Tell us, what did you get out of it?
Well, it was, President Trump, one thing from having followed him and covered him for 10 years is he's all about the media spectacle. How is this going to play in the media? And, you had that meeting there in the Oval Office. You had all those reporters in there, and there was a fairly long and winding press conference. And, I mean, let's get down to the policy. Clearly, the president met with Putin. He is supporting a path to peace that would involve Ukraine giving up a region. In exchange, Trump is saying there would be security guarantees, perhaps even American troops on the ground, which is something Putin is going to be against. But at the end of the day, what's happening now, I think, is they're in a private meeting, and Zelensky's probably telling him, look, we were invaded. We have autonomy here. We don't want to give up a region. We don't think that should be the grounds for peace. And it probably would ask Trump to be harder on Putin, who did initiate the war. And then you've got European leaders. I mean, this was a very hastily arranged meeting because of what happened on Friday with Trump and Putin, because Europe also does not want Ukraine to have to cede that kind of territory, because someone like Putin, I think history has determined that you can't really take him for his word. You have to be very skeptical to see what his ulterior motive is, and to see, he has said in the past he doesn't believe Ukraine should exist as a separate independent country. So I think you still have to sort of assume that's the way Putin is thinking. And so, a lot could happen in the next few hours.
When do we find out? How quickly do we find out what's being said right now?
I think we found out quickly last week because that meeting didn't go so well, apparently. There weren't a lot of things agreed on, and so they adjourned without even doing a post-lunch meeting. So it's the same thing here. If they adjourn quickly, it sounds like they probably don't have they don't have a meeting of the minds here. If it goes on longer, then maybe you would think that they're hashing out the contours of some kind of agreement. But this is a very delicate walk. There's a big gulf between what Putin wants and what Zelenskyy wants.
And what during the press conference, I heard President Trump saying, Mr. Putin, he's going to come out looking good. Mr. Zelenskyy, you're going to come out looking good. And I, Donald Trump, am not going to come out looking good. Thoughts to that comment?
Well, that was in response to a question from a friendly, let's say, influencer who, there are more influencers now in the press corps, who asked him, why does the media keep bashing you for certain things? And he claimed that the media was being unfair for maybe being critical of what happened in Alaska, inviting Putin rolling out the red carpet onto American soil, and Trump. Obviously, it's an obsession to see how he gets portrayed in the media with him. That's always been the case, even from his time before being president, and scrutiny comes with the job. Got to be able to handle it, and the president used that opportunity to complain that whatever deal he cuts, it could be Ukraine looks good, Russia looks good, but someone will complain that Trump gave away the store or something like that. So that's what he was referring to.
Have you been speaking to locals about this meeting and about what happened on Friday, what's happening right now in Washington, D.C., and what are they saying?
Yeah, I've spoken to a few foreign policy folks that have their expertise over the years has been this region. One of them, Cecile Shea, who I'm going to have on Paris on Politics tonight, said she doesn't fault Trump for making the attempt to have a meeting with Putin, but is not sure what exactly came out of it. And at the end of the day, it has to be an agreement, maybe brokered by Trump or brokered by Europe, but has to be an agreement that's agreed to by Zelenskyy and by Putin. And Trump saying that he's going to call Putin right after the Zelenskyy meeting. I think there's some foreign policy folks that feel that Putin is still too much in the driver's seat on this process, and it almost seems like Trump is trying to before something's agreed on, he wants to see what Putin thinks about it. So there are folks that are worried that Putin is driving this process maybe a little too much, and that if the U.S. is going to broker it, then perhaps they need to divest themselves a little bit from wondering how it's going to play with Putin.
Because when you talk about optics, what does it say that we first met with Putin, we meaning President Trump, met with Putin before meeting with Zelenskyy one-on-one again?
Well, I can tell you how, again, the reports are how this plays in media is a big factor, and Trump is very concerned about how this plays in the American media. But in the Russian media, the reports are that it was a triumph. Now, that's a propagandistic media over there in Russia. It's state-controlled for the most part. And in the state-controlled media, they're saying it's a triumph. All the pomp and circumstance of the red carpet and flying onto American soil, and that Putin left, looking really, really good. That's how his media in Russia is interpreting it. And in the U.S., a lot of folks are interpreting that Putin did get a lot of what he wanted. He wanted that PR that he could take home to his country and say, see, look, I have this influence over the United States. And that seems to be how it's playing in Russia. So much can change in the next few hours. And, I got to mention the fact that Trump really started diverting onto the message of attacking mail-in voting here in the United States. And that's something he said in his meeting with Putin. Putin brought up with him. Putin said, the 2020 election wasn't fair and mail-in voting is corrupt. And now Trump has renewed his push to end mail-in voting. Now, that's what I'm focusing on today, actually, is these efforts to end mail-in voting. He says he's going to put out an executive order. I talked to a few election law experts, say he has no authority. He has no such authority to be able to say, you can't run your elections this way. Elections are run by the state, and mail-in voting is something that President Trump has done. He's voted by mail. His supporters have voted by mail. There are states that do universal mail-in voting, and the Constitution outlines the power to administer elections to the states. And in Illinois, it's very decentralized. It's each local county basically kind of runs it, and the state board of election kind of synthesizes all that. So that's something that executive order can't change. Now, some of the election experts I spoke to said Congress could pass a law if they wanted to. That law could be challenged. It's not something the president can do. The president doesn't have a role in running elections. President Trump is claiming that he does, and that's one of the very many things that will probably be litigated then and sort of taken to the courts.
Yeah, and that topic coming up on Paris on Politics. Paris, thanks so much for your time, your insight. We appreciate it very much. I would love to be a fly on the wall in that room in Washington, D.C. right now, right, as we speak.
So would everybody, yeah, Elizabeth. But
right.
We'll see what comes of it. We'll be monitoring.
Yeah, we will. And 1:30 again for our viewers of Chicago Live. At 1:30, there's supposed to be another event happening in Washington, D.C. We'll keep an eye on that. But for now, we're going to go to break. We're going to come back. We're going to be talking to the ISP director, Illinois State Police Director Brendan Kelly, about grants that they're giving police departments. More on that to come right after this. Welcome back to Chicago Live. I'm Elizabeth. Thanks for sticking around on your Monday afternoon. It's now coming up on 1:18. Our next story, very local. Illinois State Police are handing out about $1 million in grants. These are firearm enforcement grants. The Illinois State Police Director, Brendan Kelly, answered my call, agreed to come on to talk about all this with me. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, anytime, Elizabeth. You got it.
Appreciate it. Okay, so firearm enforcement grants. What is this? Can you just explain it to us first and foremost?
So look, there's many ways that someone can legally lose their ability to own a firearm. It's a whole series of laws in the state of Illinois that are designed to make sure that people who are a threat to themselves or maybe a threat to others don't have access to a firearm. And that can be because they've been charged with a serious offense. It can be because they have a firearms restraining order against them. They may have been the subject of an order of protection. They may have been reported as a clear and present danger. There may be some criminal record from another state that has identified them as someone who should not be able to have a firearm. But it's one thing to, in the system, revoke their ability to have that firearm in a legal sense. It's an entirely different effort for law enforcement to go make sure the guns themselves have been properly either permanently or temporarily disposed of while this person poses a threat to themselves or others. And that is very intensive work. It requires a lot of investigation. It requires a lot of workup. It's a very kind of particular set of skills, capacities, and time that law enforcement has to devote to it. And that's something that has worked not just the Illinois State Police level, but at the local level with sheriff's departments, with municipal police, Chicago, Cook County, you name it, and giving these local law enforcement agencies some funding to support those initiatives is something we began about 4 years ago. It was a bipartisan effort in the legislature to give local law enforcement more funding for this particular effort, to be able to, again, make sure firearms are not in the hands of somebody who is going to hurt themselves or might be threatening to hurt others. And these resources can be used by local law enforcement for those investigative efforts, for overtime, for whatever is needed to be able to make sure this type of law enforcement effort is sustained in their community.
This is not the first round you mentioned. This is the fourth round. Is that correct?
It is. I think we're in round 4, and it's just going to continue to grow. And we see applications for this type of grant funding from our law enforcement partners all over the state. It's in rural areas, it's in urban areas, it's in suburban areas. Everybody can use a little bit of help financially to kind of help build out their budget to sustain these type of investigative efforts.
Right.
And they are using these resources to go and make sure these firearms are properly handled and put in a place where someone's not going to hurt themselves or hurt somebody else. We'll often work with them as well. And you see a lot of the details that we do, not just with local law enforcement, but some of our combined efforts through our metro enforcement groups and our task forces. So this really is a catalyzer for this type of effort that we know is saving lives. There are people who are potentially threatening suicide. There are people who are potentially threatening to harm others. And this intervention and this little bit of financial support for this has really enabled at all levels of law enforcement to be able to have appropriate interventions and prevent tragedies.
Yeah, I think it's important to stress that point because, you know, the headline, $1 million in grant funding, sounds like a lot of money. Of course, that is a lot of money, but you've got all sorts of different departments on here. You've got Willowbrook Police Department getting almost $7,000, $11,000 to Romeoville, Joliet, $33,000. So it's really split up. Chicago Police, $425,000. So it's really split up. It's not, you're not just, this isn't just Cook County. This isn't just Chicago. And I think that's important to this.
That's right. And so, you know, when you're a lawful gun owner and you go and purchase your firearm or you pay the fee that you have for your firearms identification card, this money is going into enforcement to be able to make sure that people who are dangerous are not going to have that firearm. So it supports lawful gun ownership, safe gun ownership, and being able to intervene when we all agree, regardless of our perspectives, we all agree that there might be someone who's either for mental reasons or because their criminal conduct should not be able to have a firearm where they could hurt themselves or hurt somebody else.
Did this kind of stem from the Henry Pratt shooting out in Aurora?
So this has stemmed from a whole host of things. You see large tragedies like that. You see just a single person who takes their life. You see domestic incidents that explode into gun violence. So you see violence on the streets. You might have a shootout where someone has threatened some type of violence. So it's a whole host of things. You know, we know that gun violence is a major challenge. And rather than waiting for a response where something terrible has happened, shots have been fired, people have been killed, or you have to send a coroner because someone has taken their own life through suicide using a firearm, it's best to try to use the tools we have to prevent those tragedies from happening. And there's just example, case after case of this tool that we have, whether it's a clear and present danger, a firearm restraining order, or just enforcing a prohibitor because someone has committed a crime and they're prohibited from having a firearm. Now, we just know that it is making a difference, and these dollars are well spent by our local law enforcement partners.
This sounds kind of like it's easy to talk the talk, a little bit harder to walk the walk, right? So you talk the talk, you go, boop, okay, your FOID card is revoked. That's the easy part, right? The harder part is, and I'm sure there's investigation with that, so I shouldn't say easy, but that's less manpowers. But the manpower, the investigation on all those hours that goes into going and tracking somebody down and making sure that that gun is disposed of, either temporarily or permanently, that detail part of it, that takes time, and that's where all these dollars come into play.
Look, I think everybody agrees. We all agree as a society that we have to prioritize safety. We have to protect public safety. We expect law enforcement to do that. But it's one thing to say that public safety is important and that we should prevent people from taking their own lives or taking others' lives with a firearm. It's an entirely other thing to execute on that and to implement a plan and to do these interventions, which are very hands-on and which are very cumbersome and can be they have to be very deliberate for safety reasons, to work this up and spend the time, to spend the human resources and the money on just the personnel and the hours of work. That's an entirely different thing, and that's what these grants are designed to help be able to do.
What have you heard from the police departments utilizing these dollars?
I mean, every police department from one end of the state to the other, they all can use more resources. We're all competing for resources. We all have tax dollars that have to be prioritized among so many different demands that the public expects to be done. So anytime we can take money that's large or small and be able to give it to law enforcement just to help them out at various levels, whether it's at the state level or whether it's at the local level, it's a sheriff's department, it's a local municipal police department, small departments that you mentioned, big departments like CPD, it all helps and they're all grateful for it. And there's not a dime of it that they are not using towards a really good and important public safety effort.
And I want to be clear, have the gun laws tightened up and that's why you're doing this, or this is work that just needs to be done because, you know, they have an illegal FOID card?
Yeah, this isn't really driven by any new law. This is or any new type of intervention. The things I mentioned: clear and present danger, firearms restraining order, prohibitors for having committed a crime. Those are things that have been on the books for years. This is really about follow through. This is about execution. This is about not just changing someone's status in the background check system, but actually verifying that a firearm that could be used to hurt somebody, including someone hurting themselves, that has been properly disposed of. And sometimes it's a temporary thing because someone may be going through a mental health crisis and we're going to take that firearm. Sometimes it's in the middle of an investigation. We're trying to put the facts together, and it's clear on the surface of it that there may be a very dangerous set of facts here, but then we do an investigation and we have due process, and those things play themselves out. But in the meantime, we've done what we needed to do to protect public safety. So it's not driven by some new law or some new incident. This is just a common sense thing to be able to give local law enforcement a little more support for this effort.
Where do the guns go? Do you take the guns?
It can be put in the hands of law enforcement, or it can be disposed of with someone who's lawfully allowed to have that. So that can be, someone who is not having a prohibitor can temporarily take those firearms, or more often than not, law enforcement will be holding those firearms until the situation is resolved.
Last question. We've talked about this for a good few minutes here. What do you want people to know? I don't want people out there to be worried that you're going to come take their guns away. What do you want the public to know about this?
Oh, this is just good common sense law enforcement work. Guns can be used to hurt people, and we know that it's gun violence is a big driver of criminal activity. And I think we all agree, if somebody has lost that right, if they have threatened to hurt somebody, if they are threatening to shoot a school up, if they are threatening to kill their family members, or they're threatening other members of the public, or someone's in a mental health crisis and we're very concerned that they're going to take their own life, we have to intervene, and we have to take appropriate steps, reasonable law enforcement steps, to make sure that we're protecting their safety, protecting the safety of the public. And this is just a very obvious and straightforward way that we're supporting that kind of common sense effort.
Thanks so much for coming on and explaining it to us. I do also, I'm sorry to hear that another state trooper was hit right over the weekend on 88 in DuPage County. That trooper's okay?
He's doing all right. Thank goodness he's doing all right. But it's just a reminder that people need to slow down and move over when they see any type of emergency vehicle on the side of the road, whether it's the police, our EMTs, our firefighters, construction workers. Just slow down, move over. It's just that simple.
Yeah, it happens all too often. All right, Illinois State Police Director Brendan Kelly, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. All right, it's 1:29 on your Monday. Stay with us. More Chicago Live right after this. Welcome back to Chicago Live, a live look out there. We're going to be checking in with Caitlin Cody soon. She's going to be telling us about more rain chances are coming. I think at last check there was even a severe thunderstorm warning for some of our counties. So we'll be checking in with her, but first we got to turn it over to Lou Canellis. Lou, buddy, what, 38 zilch? That ain't bad.
How about that? Was that sweet or what, Elizabeth?
That was great. Where are you right now?
Well, I'm actually at the Soho House. I had a previous meeting, so I made some time for you. But,
Thank you
you
so
look back
much.
at that game last night. Bears haven't scored that many points in a preseason game since 1999. Their second shutout in a preseason game since 1994. I personally can't remember the last time the Bears offense racked up over 500 yards in a game. And the first team offense looked just terrific, especially on that first drive, that opening drive with Caleb Williams, where he used his tight ends. He found Halamide Zacchaeus on the touchdown pass. They did so much right with that offense at the beginning of the game. And really, it started earlier in the week for practice. And Caleb Williams has taken a beating, unfortunately, in this town for the struggles that he's gone through, learning the new scheme, working with a new head coach, working with new talent on the offense. But I really felt it started to come together last week. He had 3 really good practices, including that joint practice with Buffalo on Friday at Hallis Hall. And the Bills had one of the best defenses last year in the NFL. So we're seeing progress from the offense, and it all came together last night.
School me a little bit. I was watching the game, but it was with one eye open because I was already sleepy. We had our starters out there at the beginning. Did they have their starters? Was it even Steven as far as the beginning of the game?
They did not. They did not have their starters. So that would be the one argument would be, well, Buffalo didn't play its starters. True. And not to revisit history, but let's revisit history. Last year, the Bears played at Buffalo in the preseason and got their butts whipped 33-6. And we know how last year finished up for the Bears. So I temper my excitement a little bit because the preseason means nothing. That's why I referenced last week and the progress that we saw with the offense last week in practices, in the joint practice, yesterday with the game itself.
So what do you think? Is it just now clicking? It just takes time?
Both. And I think that we're still going to see this offense struggle more. It's a tough offense. Case Keenum, one of the backup quarterbacks for the Bears, who's been in the league 14 years, said it is the toughest offense he's had to learn in his career. So here's a guy that's got some experience learning different offenses in the NFL. You've asked Caleb Williams to literally change the way he plays the quarterback position. When he takes the snap, to lead with his left foot, not his right foot that he's always led with. For Caleb Williams to go under center more instead of always in the shotgun, which will help play action when the Bears decide that they're going to run the football and then throw the football. And then you're just talking about a number of different guys on offense. They rebuilt the interior of their offensive line. You've got a new net right tackle. You've got a new left guard, new center, new right guard. So you've got new players on the interior offense learning a brand new system with a young quarterback who's been in the NFL for 2 years. Remember, this is just the second season. This isn't Ben Johnson taking over the Lions with Jared Goff, who had been in the league 6 years and had been to the Super Bowl and had been to the Pro Bowl twice. Caleb Williams, a young player still learning. So the learning isn't going to end. I think that the team could still get off to a slow start to start the season. And I don't want anyone to freak out if they open up 1-3, because I was a fan of the bye week, the off week that'll take place the beginning of October. It's the earliest a bye week can take place for a team. I think it's good for the Bears because if they get off to a slow start, the coaching staff can regroup, get the players back to regroup, find out what's working, what's not working, and then go at it the last 12 games of the season.
Surprised by how much Caleb did play last night? Not surprised? How do we feel about that?
No, he didn't play much. He played 2 series. Yeah. He played the first series. They drove 92 yards, scored the touchdown. Remember, this is a Bears team, by the way, that did not score a touchdown on their opening drive all of last season. They scored an opening drive touchdown yesterday. That was poetry in motion. The second drive, if Romadunze catches that football on third down, who knows? They probably, at the very least, get 3 points out of that drive. So, yeah, I wish he would have played another series, but Ben Johnson felt like he saw enough. He did not have DeAndre Swift. Let's go back to starters that didn't play. Mm-hmm. Buffalo didn't play its starters. The Bears, thankfully, didn't play DeAndre Swift, running back. They're already short in the running back room because of injury. They can ill afford to lose another one, so they didn't play Swift, who's their number 1 running back, and they didn't play Joe Thuney, their left guard, who is a 4-time All-Pro. No reason to play those guys. They're veterans. They've been around long enough. We know what they can do. They didn't play Grady Jarrett on the defensive side of the football, older guy, 10 years in the league. So the Bears didn't play a few starters either, and for good reason. So you asked me, did I think Caleb played enough? Yeah, I think he played enough.
Will we see Caleb in the next preseason game?
No.
That was quick.
Absolutely not. Well, I don't want to see Caleb Williams out there if his first string offensive line isn't going to be out there. And I wouldn't anticipate seeing the first string offensive line out there. I wouldn't anticipate seeing DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, Cole Kmet. So if you're not going to have your best players out there, why risk injury? You won't see Patrick Mahomes. You won't see Travis Kelce. You won't see the Kansas City starters out there either. To me, this game is that formality game. You got to play the third preseason game. A number of young players are probably still playing for playing time. I think rosters have been set at this point. Maybe a guy surprises or two. Tyler Scott had a really good game for the Bears. I think he was a guy that was off the grid, and then suddenly last night he had a touchdown grab, 3 catches, 55 yards, and all of a sudden, head coach Ben Johnson is like, wow, is there room for Scott on this roster? So I think a guy or two may be able to sneak on the roster, but for the most part, I think the 53-man roster is set going into the Kansas City game.
Okay, last question, because I know you're a busy guy. In the newsroom, I overheard Super Bowl or bust. Where should we level off our expectations, do you think?
Said that.
I'm not going to tell you.
I'm
not going to tell you, but they sit close to me.
Super Bowl or bust. Jeez Louise. Can we just have a winning record first?
No,
I mean, oh my God.
Apparently not.
They were 5-12 last year. 9-8 would show progress. 10-7 would be hallelujah. They might get into the playoffs. We've got to walk before we run. Let's not expect too much. Again, as I said, don't freak out. I don't want to hear Panic City if they open up 1-3, 1-4. Lots of football still to be played. Don't forget, Ben Johnson, first year as offensive coordinator in Detroit, the Lions opened up 1-6, and they've been the best team in the NFC North ever since. Things take time. Be patient, everyone. Be patient.
All right. Good advice, Lou. But if we lose that next preseason game, we're back down here. We're up here right now. We're right back there.
No. It's a preseason game. It doesn't count.
All right. Lou Canellis, thank you so much.
You know what? Let me end with one other thing. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, go ahead.
The Bears went undefeated last year in the preseason. Where did that get them?
That's true. All right. Well, we don't want to focus on that either, okay? And I heard the commentators last night talking about how many times Caleb got sacked, and I said, can we move on, please? Right? Let's move on. Lou Canellis, yes. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye. It's 1:41 Chicago Live. Back after this. Welcome back. It is 1:44 on your Monday. There's a lot going on. Of course, President Trump meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy earlier today, just about an hour or so ago, at the White House, talking about, of course, the war in Ukraine. And we did talk to Paris Schutz a little bit earlier about what is to come out of that meeting, of course, to be a fly on the wall of that meeting, right? We don't know what will happen. We don't know when we'll find out what will happen with that particular meeting. There was 1:30 scheduled some sort of meeting or a photo op that was supposed to take place at the White House. There's a live look of that right now. Obviously, that is not going on yet. If and when that does take place in the next 15 minutes here on Chicago Live, we will bring that to you. Looks like there's some activity, but of course there's a little bit of activity and then it goes away. So we'll keep our eye on that. But in the meantime, we want to bring this to your attention. Ozempic has shot in popularity, right? It's a very popular drug. Millions of people taking the drug to treat type 2 diabetes, also for weight loss issues. But are there now issues with vision loss and certain eye problems? We want to bring on an attorney from Salvi, Shostak and Pritchard, Kristen Stoichescu. Kristen, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Hey, Kristen, so you don't have any of these cases with Ozempic, correct?
That's right. Not yet. Although typically the sort of scenario you see play out is a few attorneys will be first to file a lawsuit like this. More attention will be raised as a result of the filing of those lawsuits, and then several other lawsuits will sort of piggyback off of that. And so what we're looking at now is evidence that continues to develop, a growing body of evidence linking the use of these semaglutide-based compounds, including Ozempic being the most popular, being linked to this rare eye disorder that results in a often sudden and most of the time permanent loss of vision.
I was going to say, I know you're not a medical professional. I know you're not a doctor, but kind of tell us a little bit about what this is.
Sure. So what this recent wave of lawsuits is alleging is that GLP-1 drugs, including Ozempic and Wegovy, caused or contributed to these plaintiffs developing non-arteritic anterior ischemic optic neuropathy.
Ooh,
that's a mouthful, so they call it NION for short. It's a distinct vision disorder from diabetic retinopathy that many people taking these drugs are already predisposed to developing. But what happens with most of these plaintiffs, unfortunately, the onset of symptoms occurs most often when they wake up and they realize that they've lost either total vision in one eye, partial vision in both eyes. The presentation can vary a little bit, but the unfortunate thing is there's no treatment for this type of eye injury, and the loss of vision tends to be permanent.
So we're seeing the headlines a little bit. How many cases are you aware of? And obviously, it sounds like you're preparing yourself. Chicago's a big place, so it kind of feels like undoubtedly we might see, one or two local cases here or more.
I think that's likely. So far, by my count, most of the litigation activity in terms of cases that have been filed is focused currently in New Jersey, where Novo Nordisk is headquartered in the United States, and that's the manufacturer of Ozempic and Wegovy. So I see about 24 cases filed in New Jersey. The plaintiffs' lawyers who are handling those have moved to consolidate those cases within the state. But again, if plaintiffs around the country who developed this injury learn that there may be a connection between these drugs and the injury they've suffered, then we can expect to see more lawsuits being filed in other states. And if enough of those happen, then it might get consolidated into a federal proceeding, as we so often see with these mass tort cases.
So what if you're listening, if you're watching this right now and you think, this might be me? What is the first step? It's probably to go the medical route, I would assume, correct?
Definitely. If anybody is taking these drugs and is concerned about potentially developing vision loss or this risk, and as I said, the evidence continues to develop. Right now, there's no clear cause and effect link between this NION injury and exposure to these drugs, but there is evidence to suggest an association of increased risk between exposure to these drugs and this condition. So first and foremost, if you're taking these drugs or thinking about taking these drugs, talk to your doctor so that you can work with, the medical providers who should be up to date on all of the evolving evidence, bring these concerns to your physician, and there may be an option to switch to a different drug, or you may come to a different conclusion altogether about what makes sense with respect to the management of whatever condition you're treating with these drugs and the potential risk of this vision loss.
This might be too inside baseball, but when you hear about a drug and they list off all those side effects, is this one of those side effects, or is something similar one of those side effects?
So the package insert, and this would be the basis of the failure to warn claim brought against the manufacturers, does not currently include Nion as a potential side effect of the drug. That's at least in the United States, based on the evidence that's been coming out from the various medical journals, been published in medical journals by researchers. The European counterpart to the FDA just a couple months ago did recommend that Nion be added to the package insert in Europe, but so far no such action has taken place in the United States.
Well, that kind of bulks up a case, I would think. Yes?
It doesn't hurt from the plaintiff's perspective.
Yeah, from your perspective. Okay, so say you get one of these cases, do you wait for more to come on board? How does that work from your perspective, if that does kind of start happening here in the Chicago area?
Sure. So once we sign up a case, we start investigating immediately. So there's no sort of waiting period to see what we're going to do with them. In the event that the cases become consolidated down the line, that's sort of, it's not a concern that we address immediately, but it is something to keep in mind in terms of the sort of strategic implications filing an individual case versus filing several consolidated cases.
Can you relate this to any other types of cases that you've worked on recently? Does it feel like any other sort of case?
Yes. So at Salvi, Shostak, and Pritchard, we have a lot of experience handling mass torts like this against other pharmaceutical drugs and bringing those cases against their manufacturers. I will say this is the second wave of Ozempic focused litigation. There's currently an MDL that's been going on for a couple of years for a different type of injury, gastroparesis. So this looks to be like the second wave of these drugs that will probably be handled separately, it looks like.
Handled separately, because that's a completely different kind of condition.
Right.
And with the popularity of Ozempic, right? Like these big drugs that are become, I don't know, I hate to use the word mainstream, but have just become so popular. And if a couple of issues start popping up, you never know, how local they can get. All right. Well, Kristen Stoichescu, thank you so much, an attorney for Salvi, Shostak, and Pritchard. We appreciate your time. Thanks so much. Keep us posted. Keep us informed.
Will do.
Thanks so much. All right, it's 1:52 on your Monday afternoon, Chicago Live. We're going to go live to the White House, I believe, to see if there's a live look. We've been talking about this. There's no sound, unfortunately. We don't have sound on this. But here's President Trump. He just met with Ukrainian. Oh, we do have sound. Let's listen in.
End the killing and stop the war in Ukraine. We're all working for the same goal. Very simple goal. We want to stop the killing, get this settled. I've just had the honor of being with President Zelenskyy and all of the discussions that we've had. We covered a lot of territory, and I spoke indirectly with President Putin today. We're going to call President Putin right after this meeting. I'm sure we're going to have a solid meeting, good meeting, maybe a great meeting, and we're going to try and work out a trilat after that and see if we can get it finished, put this to sleep, because this is not since the Second World War has there been anything like this. So I'm honored to welcome NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, who's a great gentleman, great political leader in Europe generally, but now he's the NATO Secretary General, and you're doing a fantastic job. Thank you very much, Mark. Prime Minister Starmer of the United Kingdom, our friend and my friend, and doing really well. And people like him a lot. We all like him. Everyone knows President Macron of France, who's been with me from the beginning, one of the first people I met as a foreign dignitary, and I liked him from day one. And I like him even more now. That's pretty good. That's unusual. That's a pretty unusual thing. Prime Minister Meloni of Italy, who's a really a great leader and an inspiration over there. She's She's served now, even though she's a very young person, she's served there for a long period of time relative to others. They don't last very long. You've lasted a long time. You're going to be there a long time. Chancellor Merz of Germany, who is a very strong person and a very strong leader and very highly respected in Germany. And he's my friend, and it's an honor to have him as my friend. Thank you very much. Very good. You look great with your tan. Where did you get that tan? I want to get a tan like that. President Stubb of Finland, and he's somebody that, where are we here? Where? Oh, you look better than I've ever seen you look. But you've done a great job, and we wanted to have you here because you're somebody that we all respect, and you've had a lot to do with the success, I think, and the potential success, and thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it. And the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, who is somebody that we just made a big deal with all of those countries. I don't know. I think you might be more powerful than all these guys at this table. I don't know. But we had a great negotiation, and you're respected all over the world. So I want to thank you very much for being here. It's a great honor to have you. The Alaska summit reinforced my belief that while difficult, peace is within reach, and I believe that in a very significant step, President Putin agreed that Russia would accept security guarantees for Ukraine, and this is one of the key points that we need to consider, and we're going to be considering that at the table also, like who will do what, essentially. I'm optimistic that collectively we can reach an agreement that would deter any future aggression against Ukraine, and I actually think there won't be. I think that's even overrated, largely overrated, but we're going to find out. And I think that the European nations are going to take a lot of the burden. We're going to help them, and we're going to make it very secure. We also need to discuss the possible exchanges of territory, taking into consideration the current line of contact. That means the war zone, the war lines that are pretty obvious, very sad, actually, to look at them. And negotiating positions. President Putin, also, you have President of Ukraine, who is, you just met a little while ago, and we're going to try and get a three-party meeting, maybe as soon as we can. And I have a feeling you and President Putin are going to work something out. Ultimately, this is a decision that can only be made by President Zelenskyy and by the people of Ukraine working also together in agreement with President Putin. And I just think that's very good things are going to come of it. So I hope we have a good meeting. And if we can have a good meeting, I'll set up a meeting with President Putin. And if you'd like, I'll go to that meeting. And not that I want to do that, but I will do that because we want to save a lot of people from dying. A lot of people are dying, and we got to save them. We got to save it. 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 people sometimes a week. All of us would obviously prefer an immediate ceasefire while we work on a lasting peace, and maybe something like that could happen. As of this moment, it's not happening, but President Zelenskyy and President Putin can talk a little bit more about that. You know, in the 6 or so wars that we stopped, we haven't had a ceasefire. And so I don't know that it's necessary. You can do it through the war, but it would be, I like the ceasefire from another standpoint. You immediately stop the killing. But I believe a peace agreement at the end of all of this is something that's very attainable, and it can be done in the near future. With all of the wars that I got involved in, we only have this one left. Of course, as I walk out the door, there'll probably be a new one starting, and I'll get that stopped too. But I thought this was going to be one of the easier ones. It's actually one of the most difficult. They're very complex. The next step would be for a trilateral meeting, and that will be worked out. And I just look forward to working and having a great result. We're going to spend a lot of time today talking about, and we're really honored you guys came over. I mean, these are the heads of major countries and respected all over Europe. And they speak for, largely, I think I should say, but pretty much for the other countries of Europe. And we will come to a resolution today, I think, on almost everything, including probably the security. And that's pretty much the story. I'd like to say, Mr. President, would you like to say something You have the media. If you want, you could come over and you could stand, or you could use mine, or you could just turn around, whichever you feel comfortable with.
Thank you so much. I can speak without microphone. Thank you so much. I think that we had very good conversation with President Trump.
Very good.
And it really was the best one. Or sorry, maybe the best one will be in the future. But it was really good. And we spoke about very sensitive points. The first one is security guarantees, and we are very happy with President that all the leaders are here, and security in Ukraine depends on the United States and on you and on those leaders who are with us in our hearts. They have been online before yesterday, and etc. So a lot of countries on the side of Ukraine.
All right, you're watching Chicago Live. It's 2 o'clock at this point. President Trump hosting European leaders at the White House as we speak. There's a live look. This comes moments after President Trump met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. You can see him speaking right there earlier today. Let's continue to listen in.
Or maybe the first humanitarian direction, very important to exchange all the prisoners, and I think that President will help. And I was very thankful to your wife again, Mr. President, for the letter about our abducted children, and I hope that really it can be a historic role for the people to bring kids back to the families and be happy.
Get the people back, yeah.
Yes, this is so important, and I'm happy that we discussed it, this track with the President Trump, and I hope that we will find decisions. And then what is very important, that all the sensitive things, territorial, etc., we will discuss on the level of leaders during trilateral meeting, and President Trump will try to organize such meeting, and he said that he will come or not come. Ukraine will be happy if you will
both
participate.
Want me there, I will be there.
Yeah, thank you. And I think this is very important. Yes, so security guarantees, bringing kids back, and all our people, not only warriors, first of all warriors, and all the civilians, journalists, a lot of people in prison. So we need them back. And guarantees which will work for the years. We spoke about it, and I showed the President a lot of details on the battlefield, on the map. Thank you so much. Thank you for the map, by the way.
Good map.
It was great. Yeah. I'm thinking how to take it back.
We'll get you.
No. I think that we had constructive, specific meeting, and I'm very thankful to all the leaders who are here, and you help a lot. And so we are happy that we have such big unity today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much,
for hosting us.
Mr. President. I think you'll see that President Putin really would like to do something else. I think when we set that up, when we do, I think it's going to be when, not if. I think you're going to see some very really positive moves. I know there's over 1,000 prisoners, and I know they're going to release them. Maybe they're going to release them very soon, like immediately, which I think is great. But we're going to set that up today after this meeting. So very good and great remarks. I appreciate it. Mark, as head of NATO, maybe you could say a few words, please.
Yes, I will be very brief. I really want to thank you, President of the United States, dear Donald, for the fact that you, as I said before, broke the deadlock basically with President Putin by starting that dialogue. And I think it was in February that you had the first phone call, and from there we are now where we are today. And that is, I think, if we play this well, we could end this. And we have to end this. We have to stop the killing. We have to stop the destruction of Ukraine's infrastructure. It is a terrible war. So I'm really excited. And let's make the best out of today and make sure that from today onwards, we get this thing to an end as soon as possible. I really want to thank you for your leadership, what you are doing for Volodymyr, but of course also all the European colleagues. It is really crucial. And the fact that you have said, I'm willing to participate in the security guarantees is a big step. It's really a breakthrough, and it makes all the difference. So also thank you for that.
Well, NATO also has agreed from 2% to 5%, which is something that is a massive amount of money. And it's 2% that wasn't always paid to 5% that is paid. That's a big difference. And so we appreciate that. That was a great move. Thank you very much. Ursula, maybe on behalf of the Commission, you could say a couple of words.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a very important moment. Indeed, we are here, Europeans, as friends and allies. We had a fantastic NATO summit. Together as the two largest and biggest economies in the world, we had the largest trade deal ever agreed. And now we are here to work together with you on a just and lasting peace for Ukraine. Stop the killing. This is really our common interest, stop the killing. And indeed, it's very good to hear that we're working on the security guarantees, Article 5 lies security guarantees, so important. But I want to thank you also that you mentioned the thousands of Ukrainian children that have been abducted. And as a mother and grandmother, every single child has to go back to its family. This should be one of our main priorities also in these negotiations, to make sure that the children come back to Ukraine, to their families.
Thank you. And we did. I was just thinking we're here for a different reason, but we just a couple of weeks ago made the largest trade deal in history. So that's a big thing, and congratulations. That's great. Thank you very much, Ursula. Mr. Chancellor from Germany, a very great leader.
Mr. President, Donald, many thanks for having us today. I think this is extremely helpful that we are meeting and hearing that the two of you are having such a good meeting today here in Washington. The next steps ahead are the more complicated ones now. The path is open. You opened it last Friday. But now the way is open for complicated negotiations. And to be honest, we all would like to see a ceasefire, the latest from the next meeting on. I can't imagine that the next meeting would take place without a ceasefire. So let's work on that, and let's try to put pressure on Russia, because the credibility of these efforts we are undertaking today are depending on at least a ceasefire from the beginning of the serious negotiations from next step on. So I would like to emphasize this aspect and would like to see a ceasefire from the next meeting, which should be a trilateral meeting wherever it takes place.
Well, we're going to let the president go over and talk to the president, and we'll see how that works out, and if we can do that. I will say, and again I say it, in the 6 wars that I've settled, I haven't had a ceasefire. We just got into negotiations, and one of the wars was, as you know, in the Congo was 31 years long. Another one that we settled last week with 2 great countries was 35 years going on, and we had no ceasefire. So if we can do the ceasefire, great. And if we don't do a ceasefire, because many other points were given to us, many points were given to us, great points. Please, Georgia, go ahead.
Well, thank you very much, Donald, Mr. President, for hosting us today in this important meeting. And I think it is an important day, a new phase, after 3 years and a half that we didn't see any kind of sign from the Russian side that there was a willing for dialogue. So something is changing, something has changed, thanks to you. Thanks also to the stalling in the battlefield, which was achieved with the bravery of Ukrainians and with the unity that we all provided to Ukraine. And the reason why I mention it is that we also have to remind that if we want to reach peace and if we want to guarantee justice, we have to do it united. So that's why it's a very good day, the one we are in. You can obviously count on Italy as it was from the beginning. We are on the side of Ukraine, and we do absolutely support your efforts towards peace. We will talk about many important topics. The first one is security guarantees, how to be sure that it won't happen again, which is the precondition of every kind of peace. I'm happy that we will discuss about that. I'm happy that we will begin from a proposal, which is the, let's say, Article 5 model, which was Italian at the beginning. So we are always ready to bring our proposals for peace, for dialogue. It's something we have to build together to guarantee peace and to defend the security of our nation. So thank you, Mr. President, for hosting us.
Thank you very much. Emmanuel?
Thank you, Mr. President, for organizing this meeting and for your commitment. And everything was said, but I just have to say here, everybody around this table is in favor of peace. And we work very hard, and we've worked very hard during the past few years to have a peace which is a robust and long-standing peace. This is why the idea of a trilateral meeting is very important, because this is the only way to fix it. And by the way, I think as a follow-up, we would need probably a quadrilateral meeting, because when we speak about security guarantees, we speak about the whole security of the European continent. And this is why we are all united here with Ukraine on this matter. In order to organize such a trilateral meeting, your idea to ask for a truce or a ceasefire, at least to stop the killings, as we discussed, is a necessity. And we all support this idea. And in order to have such a long-standing peace for Ukraine and for the whole continent, we do need these security guarantees. And the first one is clearly a credible Ukrainian army for the years and decades to come. And the second one is our own commitment, all of us. And we worked very hard during the past few months among the coalition of the willings, with the support of NATO, to build the different pillars of security guarantees and our commitments. And you can be sure that the Europeans are very lucid about the fact that they have their fair share in these security guarantees for Ukraine, but their own security is clearly at stake in this situation. So you can count on us, as we can count on you, in order to deliver this robust peace for both Ukraine and Europe.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you for hosting us here. Can I start where Emmanuel started, which is we all want peace. The war in Ukraine has had a huge impact, particularly on the Ukrainians who've borne the brunt of it, but it's also had an impact on Europe and on the United Kingdom. There's not a family or community that hasn't been affected. And when we talk about security, we're talking about the security not just of Ukraine, we're talking about the security of Europe and the United Kingdom as well, which is why this is such an important issue. I think this is such an important meeting. As a group, I think we've had a discussion on the phone a number of times, Mr. President, but be able now to be around the table to take it forward. And I really feel that we can, I think, with the right approach this afternoon, make real progress, particularly on the security guarantees, and your indication of security guarantees, of some sort of Article 5 style guarantees, fits with what we've been doing with the Coalition of the Willing, which we started some months ago, bringing countries together and showing that we were prepared to step up to the plate when it came to security. With you coming alongside, the US alongside what we've already developed, I think we could take a really important step forward today. A historic step, actually, could come out of this meeting in terms of security for Ukraine and security in Europe. I also feel that we can make real progress towards a just and lasting outcome. Obviously, that has to involve Ukraine, and a trilateral meeting seems the sensible next step. So thank you for being prepared to take that forward, because I think if we can ensure that that is the progress out of this meeting, both security guarantees and some sort of progress on trilateral meeting of some sort to bring some of the difficult issues to a head, then I think today will be seen as a very important day in recent years in relation to a conflict which has gone on for 3 and a bit years, and so far nobody's been able to bring it to this point. So I thank you for that.
Well, thank you very much. And, you know, it's very interesting because this is the first for the White House. You can't say that very often. It's seen a lot over the years, since 1800, 1799, to be almost exact. But this is the first where we've had so many prime ministers, presidents, the heads of European nations. And by the way, Alex, I'd like you to say a couple of words, too. You're a young, powerful man. Before I finish up, I want you to say a couple of words. Go ahead.
I'll take the notion of youth back to my wife and try to convince her. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I think in the past 2 weeks, we've probably had more progress in ending this war than we have in the past 3.5 years. And I think the fact that we're around this table today is very much symbolic in the sense that it's Team Europe and Team United States helping Ukraine. And the progress that we're looking out of this meeting is about the security guarantees, which are a big part of this. And then, of course, moving towards a process with a trilateral meeting with you and President Putin and President Zelenskyy. Some of the international media might wonder, why is the President of Finland here? I think the reason is probably that we might come from a small country, but we have a long border with Russia, over 800 miles. And we, of course, have our own historical experience with Russia from World War II, the Winter War and the War of Continuation. And if I look at the silver lining of where we stand right now, we found a solution in 1944, and I'm sure that we'll be able to find a solution in 2025 to end Russia's war of aggression and find and get a lasting and just peace. The situation is very difficult, but that's why we're here.
Thank you, Alex, very much. Good job. So we're going to be meeting for a while, and we're going to discuss some of the issues. And I don't think there's any issue that's overly complex. It's at a point now where people want to do things. I really do believe. I've known him for a long time. I've always had a great relationship with him. I think that President Putin wants to find an answer too. And we'll see. And in a certain period of time, not very far from now, a week or 2 weeks, we're going to know whether or not we're going to solve this, or is this horrible fighting going to continue. We'll do our best to get it ended. And I believe you have two willing parties, and usually that's good news, but two willing parties that want to make a deal. And we'll journey together, and we'll go over and we'll see if it can be done. And it's possible it might not be able to be done. On the other hand, it's possible it will. And we're going to save thousands and thousands of lives a week. And so it's something we really have to do. And or at least we have to give it our best. It's all you can do. You can give it your best. But I think we may have a very good outcome. So I want to thank you all, and the media, I want to thank you. We're going to be staying here for a little while. Then we're going to walk over to the Oval Office, and we're going to have another little discussion about similar matters. And then they're going to go home to their great countries and report. And I'm going to remain here and work, and you're going to go and work. We're all going to be working. We may be in a different location, but that's what we know how to do is work. But I want to thank the media. Has been actually very fair, generally speaking, very fair. I think it's important that they're fair because this is a very important subject. We have to get it ended, and so that's all we ask for is fairness with the media. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right, it's 2:17 on Monday afternoon. You've been watching President Trump hosting European leaders at the White House. This was minutes after he also invited, of course, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy in to talk about the war. Of course, President Trump and Putin met just days ago on Friday, and now he's meeting with the Ukrainian president. Also, those leaders, they were speaking today. President Zelenskyy saying it was a very good conversation with President Trump, possibly, quote, the best one. President Trump kind of insisting that not if, but when they set up a meeting with Putin, possibly 1 or 2 weeks, quote, we will know if we're going to solve this or not. So it seems like there was some progress today. Not a lot of animosity in that room today, so we'll see where this stands. It's 2:17, coming up on 2:18. We'll see you back here tomorrow for Chicago Live at 1 o'clock.
This war that has been raging on for the last 3 years. All right, we'll take a 2-minute break, everyone. We will be back with more on Live Now. welcome back to Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Page. Thanks again for joining us. I want to give you a live look right now at the Capitol and also a shot here right outside of the Oval Office. President Trump and European leaders, as well as President Zelenskyy of Ukraine, they are meeting right now to discuss efforts to find peace in the war between Russia and Ukraine. So we will definitely be keeping an eye on that. As soon as we get more details coming out of that meeting, we will bring it to you on Live Now from Fox. In the meantime, let's keep you out in D.C. I want to show you earlier Mayor Bowser speaking to the media and taking questions on the National Guard, the D.C. takeover of the Metropolitan Police from the federal government, and more. Let's listen in.
Our school transportation system. Also know that all of our children have a kids ride free card. And so they have access to use the Metro to get to and from school and to their after school activities. So there should be no reason for a child to have a negative experience with Metro Transit or any other police related to fare evasion. And we continue to expect our children to behave in a good way, in a lawful way, and get to school and be ready to learn. We will, and I've reviewed those reports, and I'll continue to review them with MPD to see if there's something we need to follow up on. I'm sorry?
If I may follow up.
Sure.
All that notwithstanding, what guarantee do you have that MPD and law enforcement under your jurisdiction will do their job in just standing within the bounds of the law as it relates to their engagement with young people?
How we interact with our police officers hasn't changed. They're always expected to follow the law and engage in constitutional policing. Our residents continue to have the safeguards that we have in place in our law and our protocols, including body-worn camera, including the ability to make complaints to the police complaints board. So no one is going to sit up here and guarantee that anything. What I can guarantee is that we have a framework of laws and protocols that support constitutional policing. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. Jenny Gathright with the Washington Post. There's been video of ICE arrests, spreading all across social media, particularly one at 14th and R Northwest over the weekend, where ICE agents tackled a delivery driver and took him into custody. I guess, what's your reaction when you're seeing these videos in the city, how they're affecting people? And then a follow-up, given that the judge in the lawsuit has yet to officially rule on whether MPD will be forced to cooperate with ICE, what do you want MPD officers to be doing in the meantime as they're going around the city and potentially being asked to cooperate with these kinds of arrests?
So let me start. I don't want to comment on individual incidents because I won't have all of the details. I will say this, however, the focus should be on violent crime, and that's what has been promoted, that we're focusing on violent criminals and violent offenders and violence. And nobody is against focusing on driving down any level of violence. And so if this is really about immigration enforcement, I think the administration should make that plain. Yeah.
Sorry, question. You've talked a lot about how one of your goals is just steering the city to the other side of this administration with its home rule intact. Given the current situation, do you think the city's home rule is at risk, and how are you reflecting on this moment as it sort of seems like it's some of your concerns or potential concerns about this administration are starting to be realized?
I don't think my concerns are not new, all right? And I think anybody who has followed the rhetoric from the campaign throughout these attacks and the rhetoric around them is not new. Yep.
Marielle Carbone with DC News Now. I'm just wondering if you've had any conversations over the last week with your federal partners just about agents identifying themselves, having their faces covered. It's a concern we're hearing and seeing.
We have. I think I mentioned that last week about being very important to us that agents be identified. I did ask the chief to have further conversation about these masks. There's no reason for a law enforcement official to be masked.
Did she get any response on that?
I asked her to talk to it. I will continue to have to follow up.
Yeah. Brad Bell with Channel 7. A couple questions.
Yep.
Some messaging coming from the administration, the White House today, saying that D.C. is being made safer, and they put out some arrest numbers and numbers of guns being seized. How would you characterize this operation? Has it made D.C. safer?
MPD takes guns off the street every day and every week. And anytime you have a surge of officers, I would expect that you have some results. I say repeatedly, we need 500 more officers in D.C. With 500 more officers, get 500 more officers worth of results. And so what is not necessary, however, is this kind of commandeering of the attempted commandeering of the force itself, and the expanded, I think, work that is not related to violence.
So additionally, with this, the takeover,
what does that mean?
What coordination is there? There's this
well, let me correct you. Let me correct you. There is no takeover. What there is a surge in federal law enforcement. And that surge in federal law enforcement necessarily has to coordinate with the Metropolitan Police Department under the leadership of Pamela Smith, the chief of police.
Are they coordinating to your satisfaction?
I think there's going to be work to be done, for sure. But, you know, there's work to be done. Yes.
We've heard that the National Guard may be sending weapons to these soldiers.
That's a question for the Department of the Army.
Well, you must be concerned about that since they're not trained in law enforcement.
They can't do law enforcement as far as I know.
So that's got to be concerning to you that if they're armed.
That is not what I have been advised. And unless their orders have somehow changed, I don't know that they can engage in arrest. Yes.
If I can follow up.
Yes, sure.
Is there any coordination between your office and the White House, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel?
Yes.
But are you getting the answers to your questions, or is it not as clear as you would like it?
I think we're 7 or 8 days into this situation, and it evolves.
What does that mean?
It means just what I said.
It's evolving, or it evolves?
I'm not gonna get into the difference in suffixes with you.
Mayor Bowser.
Oh, yes, it's changed from day to day. Let me put it that way. Hold on, excuse me.
Sort of on that note, on last Monday, you'd come out and said that while this was unsettling, that potentially this could be a productive partnership with law enforcement over 30 days. Has your approach or your strategy in dealing with the administration changed since that time in terms of whether this could be productive, or are there more concerns? And are there specific things you're watching that could present a risk to the DC community that would change that strategy further?
Well, let me just put it to you this way. I will engage our government in ensuring that we are following the law. Now, what you haven't heard me say any differently in the last 7 days is that the district will follow the law. When there have been changes or attempts to change that was outside of the law, that's why we challenged those changes in court. And as a result, those changes have been backed off from. And so our strategy will deal with the reality as it is presented.
Even just to the second part of that question, even within the law, are there particular areas you're watching closely that if it could present a risk to your community that you would you would have to.
This is what we're watching closely. How can we be responsive in a way that is strategic and can be helpful? Another way to put it, how can we respond in a way that's strategic and averts harm? And I can't give you a laundry list, but I can assure you that very smart people who work across the government are working on that, and we are we're organizing ourselves in a way to deal with this incident response that is most efficient for DC government. But what I would caution everybody to think is, because you're all very logical, smart people, and you want all of this to make sense. This doesn't make sense. You know it doesn't make sense. The numbers on the ground in the district don't support 1,000 people from other states coming to Washington, D.C. You know that. We're in this beautiful school with children singing, about to go to school in a beautifully renovated building with the most prepared teachers in the country. You know the facts on the ground don't support this. You know that. You know it couldn't be done in a neighboring state. You know that. This is not about something that fits into logic. So if you want to know what's happening, the question is really not for us. It's for why the military would be deployed in an American city to police Americans. That's the question. And it's not for me. Yes.
Mayor, the last message for community members who are obviously concerned with the heightened immigration enforcement, and they're going to be returning to school. We saw some of the previous threats that the administration made and schools gearing up, Mundo Verde, and now they're going to be walking to school and they're seeing people getting picked up. What's your message to those families as they're bracing for?
This is my message. I think as a nation, we need to demand comprehensive immigration reform. There needs to be a pathway to citizenship for hardworking people who have made this country their home. And we need to separate the discussion of enforcement against violent offenders and everyday hardworking people who have made this country their home. For us in DC, we have many immigrants who have lived here illegally because of TPS protections. This administration needs to make those TPS protections clear and stand behind them. We have many people who have immigrated to this country who have valid work permits and student visas. We need to make plain that they are not under attack. What needs to be made plain is what has been discussed for many, many months, is that violent offenders would be dealt with. That is what we have to focus on. So for people who are anxious and afraid, I'm sorry that this is happening, but the change that needs to happen is with comprehensive immigration reform and leadership at the national level. Yeah.
Saturday night when they tried to tackle someone on ATV. Do you believe that the Trump administration is trying to force the Metropolitan Police to adopt more aggressive tactics than they've had previously?
I'm not familiar with that case yet. I'll probably, if that's an MPD officer, I'll get briefed on it and or ask the chief if there were other officers that were involved.
Do you think they're being forced to adopt more aggressive tactics than they had before all this happened?
The standards that our police work under haven't changed. Okay. All right. You have the last question.
I know you've had, I'm Alan Etter from WTO.
Yes, good to see you.
Good to see you. I know you've had a chance to meet with the Attorney General. Have you had any direct interaction with the President? Do you want that? And what would you say to the President if you have that opportunity?
The President issued an executive order that names Pam Bondi his designee, and that's who I'll work with. Thank you, everybody.
Mayor Bowser speaking on the National Guard in D.C., as well as the federal takeover from the White House as well. So a lot of key back and forth going on there from Mayor Bowser and the media members discussing those options that are on the table there for D.C. when it comes to crime reduction. All right, live look right now at the White House, where we continue to wait for more key details. President Trump, President Zelenskyy meeting right now alongside European leaders. We'll take another 2-minute break. We'll be back with more. And welcome back to Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Page. Thanks again for joining us. Take a look at the markets here with about less than 30 minutes to go till the day of trading ends. And you can see pretty much a mute day on Wall Street, just about 31 points in the red. It was a little choppy this morning with the ups and downs going in green and red. So we'll continue to take a look at it as this trading day comes to a close in less than 30 minutes. In the meantime, let's go out to Florida, where Democrats in the state are talking about the redistricting efforts that are going on across the country now that it is a nationwide issue. Let's listen in on Live Now.
And fair elections are critical for us to have a healthy economy that works for all Americans. When voters pick their leaders, not the other way around, we get leaders who fight for the working and middle class, not just the wealthy few. So as Trump seeks to rig our election, we will stand strong to protect the fair maps that allow us to hold our politicians accountable. And that means, from here in Florida, that we ask our friends from our blue states to fight fire with fire and to act with the conviction that this moment's demand in order to protect our democracy. That's right. Again, if you're a Democrat in a blue state, it is time to fight fire with fire. That's right. Thank you. With that, we welcome Congressman Akua.
Hello, everybody. Today, I'm standing here with my colleagues from the Florida legislature, community leaders, and organizers who represent hundreds of thousands of voters across Central Florida. And we are here to sound the alarm to every person in Central Florida and every person across this state. Florida Republicans are preparing to redraw congressional lines, even though there is no constitutional requirement, no legitimate justification, and no reason to do so, except because they have the fear of losing power.
That's it.
Congressional maps are drawn once a decade. That's the way it's been. That's the way it's always been, after every single census. They're not supposed to be redrawn whenever a political party feels threatened. or feels like they might lose power. Donald Trump knows that he cannot win in November. Donald Trump knows that as of right now, he is losing the midterms because they have passed legislation, and Samuel said it in a great way, that has transferred wealth and given resources from the working class, the working poor, to mega corporations and the ultra wealthy. And in this country, where we have a democracy and we're able to make our voices heard, you can't do one thing without the other. You can't take away our resources, take away our health care, take away food from 17 million children in schools without paying a political price. He doesn't want to pay the political price, and that's why he is looking to cheat. And now instead of facing voters, he's trying to change the rules of the game. And this isn't just about Florida, it's not just about Texas, it's a part of a national strategy and a coordinated.
Right, Florida Democrats were speaking earlier today. We'll keep an eye on it and bring you those comments a little bit later on Live Now from Fox. But since we are live now, that means we try to bring you as many different live feeds as they are happening. We do have one that is going on right now. We just got the feed in. This coming out of D.C. right now, a protest going on as the National Guard is in town with the federalization of the Metropolitan Police. Let's listen in on Live Now.
And we say to Congress, last but not least, end this takeover now. Governors, as my girl Kaya just told you, call your troops home. They need to be with their families, as we want ours to be with theirs. Bring them home, take them to their states, and governors, Congress members, mind your state. This is our city, our home, and we will not stop until we have full control of what's ours. When I say free, y'all say D.C. Free? D.C. When I say D.C., y'all say statehood. D.C.? Statehood. And when I say end the takeover, y'all say now. End the takeover? Now. And we mean it right now.
Thank you, Kelsey. I'm going to invite Allie Pecorino up to sing a song with us.
Hi, everybody. All right, I'm Allie Pecorino, and I am joined by the Rapid Response Choir. If y'all are here, please come up and join me. We will be singing. We all want to sing. All right, so we're going to sing We Shall Not Be Moved. This song is a background in an African-American spiritual. All right, we shall not be moved. Ready? And we shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's standing by the water. We shall not be moved. We're on the road to justice. We're on the road to justice. We shall not be moved. We're on the road to justice. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's standing by the water. We shall not be moved. We'll shame collaborators. We'll shame collaborators. We shall not be moved. We'll shame collaborators. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's standing by the water. We shall not be moved. We're fighting for our future. We're fighting for our future. We shall not be moved. We're fighting for our future. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's standing by the water. We shall not be moved. Freedom for D.C. Freedom for D.C. We shall not be moved. Freedom for D.C. We shall not be moved, just like a tree.
All right, everyone, we will keep an eye on this for you in D.C. as this rally just getting going. But from one rally to another, well, let's go from Washington, D.C. to New York City.
Needed by others with the right.
This is where medical professionals right now are sounding off against ICE, saying that they do not want ICE officers inside medical office buildings like hospitals. Let's listen in.
I spent countless hours sitting in immigration prisons interviewing people about their experience. I have reviewed thousands of pages of medical records and death reports. I am haunted by the callous disregard for human life that I've witnessed. I'm here today because I swore an oath to heal, and I cannot stay silent while my government pours billions of dollars into a system that is designed to harm. Make no mistake, immigration detention makes even healthy people sick. Right now, our neighbors and friends are being disappeared into a net of for-profit immigrant prisons, where dozens of people are crammed into a large space with inadequate ventilation, where they're subjected to extreme temperatures and the rapid spread of infectious diseases. Our neighbors and friends are treated like animals. They're served small portions of rotted food. They are forced to purchase basic supplies like pillows and soap. They seldom see the sunlight or outdoors, and yet the lights remain on 24/7, making it impossible to rest. They are separated from their children and their loved ones. They're placed in a state of limbo with no end. It is the stuff of nightmares. An immigration hearing should never result in a death sentence, and yet we continue to see people dying because ICE is denying them basic medical care. 15 people have already died in ICE custody this fiscal year, and the rapid and reckless expansion of immigration detention will likely lead to many more preventable deaths. In ICE custody, chronic conditions like diabetes and high blood pressure go untreated. Heart conditions go unrecognized. Heart attacks go without emergency care. Pregnant persons miscarry due to the lack of prenatal care. And solitary confinement is used for mental health emergencies, even though it's recognized as a form of torture. Each delay and denial of care places a life at risk. I join my colleagues in demanding that independent physicians be granted direct access to assess the health status of detained immigrants. As a healer, I call for the end to a system that strips immigrants of their humanity. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm New York City Controller Brad Lander. I want to say a big thank you to Dr. Diaz, to Dr. Go, to Dr. Moon, to Dr. Steve Auerbach, to the Doctors Council. Can we give it up for all the healthcare professionals who are out here today, along with New York Immigration Coalition and 1199, reminding us that behind all of this, behind the anger and the outrage, are a set of human beings who are just trying to live safely and healthily, and who instead are being aggressively abducted by ICE agents, put in conditions so cruel and inhumane that a federal judge has enjoined ICE to improve conditions in this building, and then in so many cases shipped through a set of detention facilities that are equally horrific. And there are a lot of violations taking place in the building behind us. There are violations of due process and law that we're seeing every single day. Part of what's heartbreaking for me is you go in and you sit in a courtroom where a judge ostensibly is actually hearing on the case. The immigrant before them is saying, I need to have my asylum application heard. Judge grants them a date, and yet the rule of law then aggressively violated in the hallway by those ICE agents. In many cases, they do it in an extremely aggressive and often violent way, as you saw when they arrested me, but far worse when I've seen family members pushed to the ground, family members ripped apart. We know that there are violations in this building of New York City's building code and New York City's fire code, putting an array of people in this building at risk, not only detainees, but folks who work in this building. And that's why the public advocate and I have called on Mayor Adams, the buildings commissioner, and the fire commissioner to do their job and send people to the 10th floor of this building, because this building exists in New York City. It is subject to our fire code. It is subject to our building code. But today, I think we're really getting down to the most elemental level at all, which is that human beings are being kept in this building, which is not designed as a facility for anyone to sleep in, and they are being denied even basic medical care. And so I mostly came today just to say thank you to the doctors and health professionals here who took an oath to observe and to take care of people's health, and who went upstairs to the 10th floor, unfortunately were refused, so that if ICE isn't going to provide adequate medical care, New Yorkers would be willing to provide adequate medical care. New Yorkers would be willing to provide legal representation. New Yorkers know how to stand up for the rule of law, how to stand up for the health of our neighbors and our fellow human beings. This city is the greatest immigrant city that the world has ever known. And it was that for immigrant Jewish New Yorkers like my great-grandparents, and it has been like that for Dominican New Yorkers and Chinese New Yorkers and Bangladeshi New Yorkers, and from country after country. And you're damn right, we're going to make sure it stays that way for folks fleeing Venezuela, for folks fleeing violence in countries all around the world. I'll just say that thanks to The Door and Rock New York recently, and a few other organizations, I've had the chance to accompany a couple of young people to recent hearings, mostly 19, 20, 21 years old. And in my case, mostly those guys have been from West Africa. And they're here without their families, and they're going to high school, and they're just trying to survive in the world. And the fact that there are New Yorkers holding their hands out to those folks to make sure their legal rights are provided for, their basic needs are provided for, and willing to ensure that their health care is provided for. That's the New York tradition that I'm proud to be a part of. Thank you guys very much for doing it. We're not going anywhere. ICE agents aren't going to displace us. Trolls aren't going to displace us. Donald Trump's not going to displace us. We are here to stand up for the values of this country, the values of this city. Thank you guys all very much for being out here together. No hate, no fear. Immigrants are welcome here. No hate, no fear. Immigrants are welcome here. No hate, no fear. Immigrants are welcome here. No hate, thank you. No fear. Of course. Immigrants are welcome here. No fear.
When I say New York City, you say Trust Act. New York City. Trust Act. New York City. Trust Act. New York City. Trust Act. Thank you so much. Good afternoon. Thank you so much to everyone's leadership and organizing here, to New York Docs, 1199. Make the road. This bill would create a critical enforcement mechanism called the private right of action for our local sanctuary city laws. Currently, local laws prohibit city agencies from collaborating with ICE on civil immigration enforcement. However, we have repeatedly seen agencies including the DOC, NYPD, and ACS illegally coordinate with ICE with impunity. And victims who have been impacted by this law-breaking don't have any path for recourse. Forward for a hearing and a vote. In this deeply troubling moment, our city needs to do everything that we can to fight back against the federal government's xenophobia and empower our immigrant communities. Passing the NYC Trust Act now is absolutely essential. Thank you. Thank you.
When immigrants are under attack, what do we do?
and I serve as the Director of Health Programs at Make the Road New York. We are here today to call attention to the unequivocally denounce the horrific treatment of immigrants at 26 Federal Plaza and all the detention facilities. These individuals, many of who are seeking safety and justice, are being stripped of their constitutional rights and subject to inhumane conditions. And today we are here to say no more. Say it with me. No more. No more. No more. No more. No more. No more. The environment in which they are being held robs them of their dignity and humanity. Even more disturbing, these conditions are actively worsening their health. We heard directly from impacted individuals that people are being denied access to basic medical care, routine screenings, and life-saving medications. Is that right? No! Healthcare is a human right. Let me repeat this in case that wasn't clear. Healthcare is a human right. Say it with me. Healthcare is a human right. 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 Healthcare is a human right, and no one, regardless of their immigration status, should be subject to these conditions. No one should be punished for showing up to a scheduled court hearing. Yet, for many, the act of compliance has led to what we describe as kidnapping, detention without due process. Just days ago, on August 12th, a U.S. District Court granted a temporary restraining order aimed at improving conditions for immigrants detained by ICE inside 26 Federal Plaza. This decision follows a class action lawsuit by Make the Road New York, filed in partnership with ACLU, NYCLU, and Wang Heckler LLP, exposing the abuse and unlawful conditions inside 26 Federal Plaza. The court's order prohibits ICE from detaining individuals in small spaces. It also mandates improvements to medical access, which is why we are here today demanding due process and rightful conditions. This rule is a step forward, but our work is far from over. The deplorable conditions we've documented here at 26 Federal Plaza are not isolated. They persist in other detention centers across the country. We will continue to fight and demand adequate health conditions for detainees until every person is treated with dignity, care, and the justice they deserve. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Mia Soto. I am the manager of organizing and strategy at the New York Immigration Coalition. When I was a child, my mother, a single mother of 2 daughters, a survivor of domestic violence from Mexico, received a notice to appear in immigration. That notice placed our small family into removal proceedings in 26 Federal Plaza, the same building we're in front. We were denied our immigration relief and faced the very real threat of being detained and deported back to danger in Mexico. I came to this country when I was 7 years old, and I did not become a citizen until I was 18 years old. That was an 11-year-long immigration process that shaped every part of my childhood. I remember walking into these immigration court hearings with my mother and my sister, holding my mother's hand and feeling her anxiety and her fear. At such a young age, I understand what it meant to be a threat, a liability, and a burden to this country. That experience stayed with me, and today, when I see families going through this system, single mothers with children, young people alone, I see myself. I know their fear because I have lived it. I have also seen what these families endure in these hearings. Parents asking me to get their child home safely. in case something happens to them. Families forced to travel long distances for mandatory hearings, leaving their children unattended or behind with neighbors or pastors or their churches or in their community care. Imagine being separated from your children, not knowing if you will ever see them again. And then there is the reality of health and medical care. People with illnesses, with conditions like diabetes, are being held without access to their medications or treatments. My own uncle has lived in this country for over 30 years undocumented, has raised 4 beautiful, amazing children, and is caring for his ill, sick wife. And he is battling type 1 diabetes. People like my uncle, people like him, who give so much to their communities, are among the most at risk. This is not just policy without human. No. 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 No.
Love thy neighbor as thyself.
Yes. It is an agenda that targets and harms our immigrant community members, our families and our friends, our mothers, our neighbors. That is why we are here today, to stand with doctors and healthcare professionals, everyone here, who are demanding access to provide urgent medical care for people in detention, families, children, the sick, the vulnerable deserve safety, dignity, and justice. The 10th floor detention facility in the holding space must be shut down. Shut it down! Shut it down! Shut it down! Shut it down! But while we keep fighting for this, every single person detained there and everywhere else must have access to medical care. Thank you. And I'll pass it over to
Forward, please. So, I'm actually going to take off the white coat for a moment, as it were, and speak in follow-up to Brad and some of the accusations that have been made here today. I'm going to speak as a Jew, as well as a physician, the grandson of immigrants. You know, I think it's in a lot of our religion where we have something about love thy neighbor as thyself, and also to care for the stranger, because you once were a stranger in a strange land. And I got to tell you, growing up as first, second generation Jew in America, like probably every other person of my age growing up as a Jew in America, we learned the story of what happened in the 40s, when it was a time that immigration and refugees were shut out of America. And the right-wing nationalists, phobes, the right-wing haters, the actual anti-Semites, the racists, were opposed to letting anyone in as the Holocaust began. And to those that want to turn away refugees, I just want to bring up the example of the St. Louis, the ship that was turned away from American borders, packed with refugees, and turned back to die. So we won't let that happen again. We remember our true history and our true values. We are for a America that can be the best it can be, the best it ought to be, and that absolutely involves immigrants and refugees, and treating them with the same human compassion we expect to treat all of our neighbors, all of our brethren. Now, I want to just reiterate for some clarity, now that it's the background noise is a little less. I just want to reiterate what our specific demands are. So our specific demands are, we know, not just here, but at detention centers, at every detention center around the country, we know that conditions are inhumane. We know that people are literally dying. We know that people are being harmed. We know that medications are being withheld. And so we are demanding that healthcare providers, independent of DHS, be allowed access to assess and provide care and referral as needed, since we know repeatedly that DHS just lies. That's one demand. We have another demand that ICE and DHS stay completely out of hospitals, stay completely out of any of our healthcare facilities. All our patients, including citizens, deserve to have care with dignity and safety and privacy. That means no ICE, no federal agents invading our hospitals, and we demand that our healthcare leadership, that the CEOs of these hospitals, that the senior executives of all of these hospitals and hospital networks declare publicly ICE is not welcome in healthcare facilities. Healthcare facilities are traditionally a sanctuary space that has always been respected up until